Lesson 1, Neurotransmitters and their impact on brain function. So in order to achieve the goals you wish for you and your clients to have a better brain, I want to illuminate some basic principles about the anatomy and physiology of the brain. So in this lesson, we will discuss the cerebral cortex, the lobes of the cerebral cortex and their functions, and some key neurotransmitters and their role in brain health. With the total volume of the brain being 1,500 cubic centimeters, the cerebral cortex occupies an impressive 70 cubic centimeters of this space. The surface of the cerebral hemispheres contains a layer of gray matter on the outside of the brain, which is composed of gyri, which are elevated ridges, and sulci, which are grooves, along with fissures, which are deep grooves that create a cortical thickness of 2.2 meters. The cerebral cortex is involved in regulating sensation, voluntary movement, self-awareness, and communication. The cerebral cortex can be divided into 4 primary lobes, known as the frontal lobe, temporal lobe, parietal lobe, and occipital lobe. The primary function of the frontal lobe, which, as its name implies, is located in the front part of the brain, is linear thinking. Another name for the frontal lobe is the prefrontal cortex. Many scientists believe that the seat of consciousness is located in the frontal lobe. It is involved in personality, emotions, intelligence, attention and concentration, judgment, body movement, and problem solving. Individuals who have trouble with focus and attention, as observed with attention deficit disorder, often have decreased functioning in the frontal lobes. The temporal lobe is located at the temple and behind the ear and is involved in hearing, memory, sequencing, organization, and understanding language. Individuals with mood and memory issues often have impaired functioning in the temporal lobes. The parietal lobe, which is more towards the top and back portion of the brain, is involved in the sense of touch, spatial perception, visual perception, and distinguishing size, shape, and color. Using brain imaging, we often observe deficits in parietal lobe function in patients with Alzheimer's disease. And finally, the occipital lobe, which is located in the back part of the brain, is primarily involved in vision. When using techniques like visualization, you will activate the occipital lobe. The cells of your brain are comprised of both neurons and glia. Neurons are the nerve cells in the brain. They are around for your lifetime, and a majority of them cannot divide, which is why I teach people that every neuron in your brain is precious. We lose many of them from chronic exposure to heavy metals, pesticides, and herbicides in our food, and toxic chemicals in our environment, for example, in the air we breathe. Neurons have an extremely high metabolic rate, which is why they require a continual supply of glucose. One of the best sources of glucose for the brain comes from whole foods like fruits and vegetables. Glial cells are considered the support cells of the brain. Glia do not carry a neural impulse, rather, they act as a scaffolding which provides insulation and support for the neurons. They take up half of the total mass of the brain. While the human brain has 85 to 100 billion neurons, they have between 10 to 50 times as many glia. Myelin is a lipid that protects and electrically insulates some axons. It increases the speed of the neural impulse conduction, which can reach up to 200 miles per hour. Individuals with the autoimmune disorder multiple sclerosis lose this protective myelin sheath around the neurons, significantly impairing neuronal communication. Neuronal communication is what impacts our behavior. You will learn in Lesson 2 that the way our neurons are wired in the brain guide our thoughts, actions, and behaviors. It is through the rewiring of the neuronal communication that we can achieve our goals. Neurons communicate with other neurons, muscles, and glands at junctions called synapses, which is a space between two cells where chemical messengers called neurotransmitters are released. This has a powerful impact on how we feel. I will discuss this concept further in the upcoming slides. So each neuron has the potential to create anywhere from 10 to 40,000 synaptic connections, illustrating the tremendous complexity of the central nervous system. Neurotransmitters are the naturally occurring chemicals inside the body that transmit messages between cells. They control almost every function of your body and are important in regulating your mood, memory, ability to learn, and overall brain function. In the brain, there are hundreds of different neurotransmitters. The neurotransmitters that are most often referenced in the literature and which will be important for your training are dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine, and GABA. These neurotransmitters are involved in your ability to focus and concentrate, activate pleasure centers, regulate your mood, give you energy, enhance mental alertness, and relax the body. So it's important to note that most mental illnesses and cognitive dysfunction involve abnormal synaptic activity of one or more brain neurotransmitters. The brain is a chemical factory that continually produces serotonin, dopamine, and other neurotransmitters. So it's important that you consume raw materials or nutrients at appropriate concentrations in order to generate these chemicals. The appropriate combination of amino acids, vitamins, minerals, and biochemicals from food provide these raw materials to synthesize the neurotransmitters. It is believed that low levels of neurotransmitters is now becoming an epidemic. So as I said, neurotransmitters are obtained from amino acids, vitamins, and minerals consumed in the diet. When the diet is deficient, neurotransmitter production can become impacted. Caffeine and other stimulants can greatly reduce the effectiveness of neurotransmitters. Stress, overwork, and a lifestyle of overstimulation can impact your neurotransmitter levels as you deplete your reserve, working to calm yourself down. The largest source of neurotransmitter production is in the gut, so any type of gut dysbiosis or dysregulation can also lead to low levels of neurotransmitters. Other factors, including chemical sensitivities, allergies, blood sugar dysregulation, hormonal changes, and dehydration, can also impact neurotransmitter levels. This is why it's important to understand some of the most important neurotransmitters whose deficits have been associated with changes in mood and behavior. The first neurotransmitter we will discuss is dopamine, which is an excitatory neurotransmitter which helps you to feel more energized, excited, and stimulated, and also supports focus and concentration. It is often associated with your pleasure centers, and when released, it makes you feel more mentally alert. It also stimulates you to engage in life. Low dopamine levels are associated with a childhood disorder known as attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, in which the individual has difficulty with focus and attention. It's also observed in addictive behaviors where the individual uses substances to release dopamine and stimulate the pleasure centers of the brain. Individuals who procrastinate with work, schoolwork, or other tasks are often low in dopamine, and they use procrastination as a method to stimulate dopamine release in the brain. Low dopamine has also been associated with a low libido and low motivation. Dopamine is also low in individuals with Parkinson's disease, a movement disorder resulting in the loss of neurons that produce dopamine in the brain. So individuals with low dopamine have low energy, a low desire to do anything. They often struggle to get motivated to exercise. They may have difficulty focusing or concentrating on things. So they often gravitate towards drinking coffee or energy drinks, which mimic the effects of dopamine. However, these habits practiced over time deplete your body's ability to make its own dopamine. So the precursor to dopamine is the essential amino acid phenylalanine, which can be obtained from the diet. Phenylalanine is converted to tyrosine, which is the amino acid precursor to dopamine. This demonstrates how important proper diet is to providing the raw materials, in this case an amino acid, to generate enough dopamine to support focus and energy. Norepinephrine is an excitatory neurotransmitter, which is considered a stimulating and energy-giving neurotransmitter. It's associated with arousal, vigilance, concentration, is elevated during the stress response. It can impact the proper functioning of circadian rhythms, and when elevated, can result in a restlessness and anxiety. The precursor to norepinephrine is the amino acid phenylalanine, which gets converted to tyrosine, which is essential in the regulation of mood and metabolism in the nervous system. Low levels of norepinephrine can result in attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, depression, and obsessive behaviors. Serotonin is a monoamine neurotransmitter involved in the regulation of mood. It's associated with well-being and happiness and is instrumental in modulating appetite as well as the regulation of our sleep cycles. Low levels of serotonin have been linked with many mood disorders and illnesses, including depression, obsessive disorders, chronic pain such as muscle aches, fibromyalgia, or jaw pain, migraines, insomnia, sleep disorders, and negative self-talk. Low serotonin is also associated with carbohydrate cravings, which, in some people, can lead to anorexia and bulimia. As serotonin is considered the feel-good neurotransmitter, when levels are low, we often gravitate towards foods that will support its production in the body. Those can come from healthy, nutrient-dense carbohydrate sources, including sweet potatoes, avocados, plums, bananas, tomatoes, eggplant, walnuts, and pineapples. However, most people gravitate towards non-nutrient carbohydrate sources, including cakes, cookies, pies, grains, and dairy. So what makes serotonin levels go down? There are many causes. So one could be a tryptophan deficient diet. Stress and high cortisol levels can actually increase activity in an enzyme that breaks down serotonin. Excess inflammation in the body can stimulate enzymes that break down tryptophan, a precursor to serotonin. The body may just not make enough serotonin. People who have blood sugar imbalances or insulin resistance have issues with serotonin. Vitamin B6 deficiency, which is important in converting the tryptophan to serotonin, can result in low levels of serotonin. And magnesium deficiency can all prevent the body from making serotonin. So the final neurotransmitter that I'm going to discuss in this lesson is GABA, or gamma-aminobutyric acid, which is an amino acid that acts as a neurotransmitter in the central nervous system and helps us to stay relaxed. It's essential to brain metabolism and is important in healthy brain function, as it is what calms the brain down when the adrenal glands release excess stress hormones such as cortisol, epinephrine, and norepinephrine. It serves to decrease neuronal activity and inhibit neurons from overfiring. It prevents anxiety and stress-related messages to reach the motor centers of the brain by occupying their receptor sites. It serves to calm the body, much like tranquilizers, but without being addictive. Deficiencies in GABA can result in anxiety, panic attacks, sleep issues like insomnia, restlessness, and seizures. If you're feeling stressed, overwhelmed, or if your body is uptight, then you might want to consider taking GABA. In addition, if you consume excess sugar, alcohol, or drugs like marijuana to help relax your system, then you would want to think about taking GABA. The amino acid taurine is the precursor to GABA and can be taken to help calm the brain down as well.